It's Nolan. Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show.
I said I'm A-Town finest, I put my game down, grinding. Was on them Greyhounds trying to get out of state. My assignment was hit the stage at a college, encourage kids they could do it. Told them how to reach greatness, some days you must be secluded. On my own shit, hang up the phone shit, they on some clown shit. I'm David, I stay with a stone for cracking your dome with. Play me, I come to your home and ring your alarm. Bitch, I'm crazy, this ain't just a song. Quit raising your tone, prick. I'm that nigga that number one spot, nobody can't top, I ain't even got dropped though. Big dog gon' run on my block, got the blade on chop, beat nigga like Nacho. Rent do nigga sell like rock, move bass, I not do me like Rocco. Spend a bitch, she say I'm guapo. No money, I say no hablo, no English. My screenplay, try to get stretched out like Bengay. Don't call me, let you and your friend on the line, try to put it on three-way. I'm Green Bay, I'm about my cheese, nigga run up the check like relay. Got leeway, I flip my style like I'm a lucha libre.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody's doing well out there this Friday evening. As y'all know, we've been keeping very close tabs on this whole Milagro, Megan Thee Stallion situation. Megan Thee Stallion has been suing Milagro for defamation, cyber stalking, promotion of a deepfake sex tape. All of those different things, intentional infliction of emotional distress, all of that stuff. As of now, we're actually not going to be getting into that today because Miss Milagro Gramz has now been hit with another lawsuit. This time, it has nothing to do with Megan, although there will be some updates coming to that case as well very soon. I believe there's going to be another deposition about a week from now, as it pertains to the Megan and Milagro situation. Tory Lanez tried to file a motion which would absolve him from having to do another deposition. That was denied. So he is going to have to come back out and speak and answer questions once more. And this time it will be in front of a judge. But let's get into Milagro's new lawsuit. This lawsuit is coming from the state of Texas, I believe. And it has to do with some camp mob that she did back in 2023, which I guess was some type of annual meetup that she did for her fans where they would link up or like a cabin or something like that. And who knows what type of activities were scheduled at these events. But apparently two patrons that went back in 2023 are now suing. They're suing for defamation. They're suing for harassment and some sort of sexual issue. I'm going to get into the paperwork, but just giving y'all the update on what this is. Okay? So let's get to it because I don't have a lot of time. All right. So as you can see, this paperwork was put out from Document Tings. Shout out. So it's going to have that watermark all over it, but it's still quite legible. So we're going to go through this. All right. So we have Jordan Thomas and Antonio Toll-Free as plaintiffs, and they're going up against Airbnb Inc., Milagro Cooper, Mob Radio, which is her company, Alexander Jeffries, Texas Premium Rentals, LLC, and John Doe's 1 and 2. Okay? This is in the District Court of Harris County, Texas. All right? This is a petition for damages. Come now. Plaintiffs Jordan Thomas and Antonio Toll-Free and they filed their petition for damages against defendants and would respectfully show this court as follows. Plaintiffs will conduct discovery under level 3 of Texas Civil P 190.4 because they seek monetary relief aggregating more than $50,000, and because this case is complex involving multiple parties and claims. They request that the court enter a discovery control plan and place this case on level 3. Okay? Plaintiff Jordan Thomas is a Texas citizen residing in Harris County, blah, blah, blah. We don't got to get into all of the locations. Just know we already have named all the parties. Going to get past some of this other stuff. Let's get to the allegations. All right. So plaintiffs, prior to the sadistic and dehumanizing exploitation by the defendants, were married. Defendant Milagro and Camp Mob, collectively defendants, plan, host, organize, and manage an event called Camp Mob. Camp Mob is a fan engagement kickback, which has undeniably commercial purposes, e.g., gathering the Milagro defendants fan base, promoting and marketing their brand, and maintaining engagement of their base. These efforts, and Camp Mob specifically, are intended to support Milagro defendants' efforts to monetize their platforms and social media content. Camp Mob is an annual event. Milagro defendants host the event at a different venue each year. Plaintiffs had attended a Camp Mob event in the past. However, those prior events were uneventful and free of abuse or misconduct. Accordingly, plaintiffs had no reason to foresee that November 2023 event would be conducted in a negligent or abusive manner. In attending, plaintiffs reasonably relied upon the Milagro defendants' representations and advertisements regarding the nature, safety, and purpose of the event. Plaintiffs and other guests were invited through Milagro defendants' online platforms, e.g. Stationhead, Discord, Twitch, Spotify, and podcasts. Plaintiff Toll Free first became aware of Milagro Cooper and her platform Mob Radio through his spouse, Jordan, who listened to broadcasts while working from home. All right, so the plaintiffs in this case were married once upon a time. I guess they are no longer. And one was seemed to have been a very big fan of Milagro. Well, both, because they had both previously attended. Okay? Plaintiffs later promoted their candle business in the Mob Radio platform, so they did some advertising over there too. And from there, Plaintiff Toll Free's relationship with Milagro defendants deepened through continued interactions, including his custom wig making business and participation in related online broadcasts. So they actually began to collaborate as well. And he had a wig making business. This particular Camp Mob was held on November 2nd through 6, 2023. The SA of Plaintiff Thomas occurred during the night of November 3rd, 2023, continuing into the early morning hours of November 4th, 2023. Camp Mob is ostensibly a party, but the Milagro defendants are not merely social hosts. This was not the first Camp Mob event. In this particular case, however, the Milagro defendants rented the venue, a single-family home, from Airbnb. We don't need the address on that. But the venue's owner is Texas Premium Rentals, so they're holding Airbnb and Texas Premium Rentals liable as well. We'll see. Milagro defendants instructed guests that they could not use personal cell phones during Camp Mob. Plaintiffs learned after the fact that this had two intended purposes. One, ensuring that the Milagro defendants had exclusive content from Camp Mob, and two, preventing guests from summoning help, while John Doe 1 and John Doe 2 committed the SA upon Plaintiff Thomas. So they're alleging that there's two John Does, as in males, who committed some sort of sexual misconduct upon the plaintiff, SA. Milagro defendants orchestrated the environment and recorded the assault for their own profit. Milagro defendants, Jeffries and John Does 1 and 2, use alcohol and deception to assault their unsuspecting victims while recording it and then hawking it for profit. So interestingly enough, they're saying that there was a no cell phone policy, which I don't know about going to no event where I can't use my phone at all. I don't know if it was cell phones submitted at a certain time or what, but hell no. But then they miraculously have a phone out recording you. Milagro defendants and Jeffries controlled the Camp Mob environment and directed and encouraged heavy alcohol consumption, a practice they referred to as turning up. Y'all know what turning up is. John Doe 1 and John Doe 2 were invited guests of Milagro Cooper, and their participation in the event was the direct result of Milagro's actions in creating and controlling the environment. Milagro defendants directed that guests bring alcohol. Bring liquor, but don't bring your phone. Fuck out of here. Milagro defendants encouraged guests to consume an excessive amount of alcohol and use marijuana and THC vape pens. Guests consumed these substances as directed and encouraged by Milagro defendants. Milagro defendants introduced a drinking game, Carisha Please, Risha Roulette, which required guests to drink shots of liquor for each card drawn. It's what happened when you try to organize your own freak-offs, ain't it? Allegedly. As far as plaintiffs were concerned, this was a promotional party and not an invitation to provide content to the Milagro defendants. There was not a production team present. This Camp Mob was not marketed as a mock reality TV show or one that was intended to generate content to be exploited by Milagro defendants. Plaintiffs were not asked to execute liability waivers, consent forms regarding the use of their image and likeness. Camp Mob did not have any form of security. So this is an unsecure environment. Camp Mob included other events, such as a wine tasting event earlier in the day. The express purpose of the wine tasting event was to ensure Camp Mob guests were intoxicated so that the Milagro defendants could exploit them. So they was drinking wine in the afternoon and then hard liquor in the eve. Camp Mob also included a group meal at the Breakfast Club. We won't give that out. Milagro defendants Jeffries and John Doe's 1 and 2 acted in concert to exploit plaintiffs by separating them, ensuring they consumed excessive quantities of alcohol such that they would be incapable of consent or self-protection, trespassing plaintiff's private and secure bedroom at the venue, physically assaulting and committing battery against Jordan Thomas, engaging him in explicit sexual conduct, recording that conduct, and later publishing it on various social media platforms. Ooh, that's some serious allegations there. I'm trying to understand why this was not brought to the authorities, or at least so far it hasn't been spoken on. But these motherfuckers should be in criminal charges. The Milagro defendants Jeffries conspired together to exploit plaintiffs for commercial gain. In furtherance of this conspiracy and sexual exploitation, Milagro defendants instructed Jeffries to separate Thomas from Toll-Free by telling Toll-Free that he had to leave with him in order to handle a food delivery while they were at the winery. The purpose of this ruse was to separate Toll-Free from Thomas so that Thomas would consume excessive quantities of alcohol and be removed from someone that could protect or otherwise look out for him. What you mean I'm supposed to come with you on a food delivery? What type of... No! Nigga, you better go fucking DoorDash on your own. What the fuck you need me for? You brave enough to go ahead and cling on the app, ain't you? The Milagro defendants and Jeffries continued their exploitation and manipulation later that afternoon when Milagro encouraged plaintiff Toll-Free to cast some shade or otherwise mess with a guest about the quality of her wig, Toll-Free expecting it to be taken in good humor or providing a spark to the gathering. Hold on, so Milagro allegedly was trying to get you to engage in the roasting of a woman about her wig. Not knowing what he was getting himself into, Toll-Free followed their guidance. That led to a heated argument between Toll-Free and the guests. Incredulously, Milagro defendants and Jeffries asked Toll-Free to leave the venue for the very conduct they had just asked him to execute. Recognizing that he was being manipulated, Toll-Free and Jeffries argued about the request to leave. At this time, Milagro defendants are recording the whole thing and offering commentary. Ooh, they fighting. They are leaving. This argument was later posted on various social media platforms without Toll-Free's consent. So there was a big hoodoo about this wig incident. So they're getting kicked out and they're being recorded as they're supposedly leaving. As directed by the host, Toll-Free left the venue, thereby leaving his spouse in a vulnerable position that Milagro defendants Jeffrey and John Doe's 1 and 2 would exploit. All right, so they got that. They've achieved the mission of separation, isolation, kicked one person out. I don't see how if you came with somebody and they got kicked the fuck out and it's supposed to be your spouse, why would you stay? You know, we came together. We leaving out this bitch together. Fuck you mean? Shortly thereafter, as directed by Milagro defendants and Jeffries, John Doe 1 sat on Thomas' lap. Hell no. Thomas, by this point, was completely lacking the ability to consent, and that inability was clearly obvious to all around him. So they saying that Thomas here was completely out of it from drinking all day, allegedly. John Doe 1, without Thomas' consent, put his hands on Thomas and physically took him upstairs to a bedroom, locking the door behind him where John Doe 2 was already present. Throughout this time, John Doe 1 made derogatory and demeaning hand gestures. Milagro defendants used a nail to pick the lock and violate Thomas' privacy. There is audio of Milagro talking about how she picked the lock, by the way. So there is some credence to this lawsuit, although some of it does sound a little shaky. John Doe's 1 and 2, S.A. Thomas. Oh, wow. 2 guys on 1 guy. After removing his clothes, Thomas is unconscious, and during this entire episode, Milagro defendants are video recording the entire assault and crime. Milagro defendants will later brag that she could pick the lock very easily using a nail, as it was a basic interior bedroom lock. As if this dehumanizing and criminal assault were not enough, these same defendants further exploited Thomas, orchestrating a coerced confessional apology video. At the time, Thomas was unaware that a SA had even taken place, and due to his extreme intoxication and incoherence, agreed to send Milagro a video stating that he did not remember what had occurred. So they coached you into sending a video saying you don't know what happened. In this state, Thomas was incapable of giving consent or protecting himself from further abuse. After Camp Mob, and without plaintiff's consent or authorization, Milagro defendants posted non-consensual explicit footage of Plaintiff Thomas and John Doe's 1 and 2 on various social media platforms such as YouTube, Discord, Twitch, and Stationhead. So y'all recorded this alleged SA and put it out as content on YouTube, Discord, Twitch. And I mean, you can't play video on Stationhead. That would have been audio. But still disgusting nonetheless. Non-consensual. That's... You done got yourself in some shit. These same defendants posted again without authorization the events involving Toll-Free and the guest wearing a wig. Much of Milagro defendants' exploitation and invasion of plaintiffs' privacy, including key admissions about their conduct, was self-reported on the Stationhead platform, including broadcasts entitled All Things Go on November 6, 2023, and on May 17, 2025. So even as recent as this year, they say she's still been talking about it. In that content, Milagro defendants confessed to the unlawful entry into the bedroom and recording of Thomas. Milagro defendants and Jeffries reaped financial rewards and remuneration in the form of subscriptions and donations on Twitch, Stationhead, Spotify, Cash App, and Discord. They also received audience payments and event participation. Milagro defendants subsequently removed this content upon learning that plaintiff Toll-Free will be deposed in a lawsuit filed by Megan Pete against Milagro. Oh, shit. I did see that name in the list of people to be subpoenaed, but I didn't know the significance. Shit. Megan Pete sued Milagro for spreading false and harassing content, including sexually explicitly deepfake videos, which Milagro encouraged her followers to share and engage with, and engage in a years-long campaign of harassment against Ms. Pete. The matter is case number blah, blah, and is presently pending in the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. Toll-Free was deposed on July 22nd, 2025 by plaintiffs that noticed the depot. So they definitely got a very negative character assessment on you, Milagro, from somebody who was allegedly SA'd at your event that you recorded and busted in to observe. Defendant's conduct caused plaintiffs to get divorced. So after this horrific event took place, the two plaintiffs that came together left separate, literally and figuratively. Airbnb and Texas Premium. Airbnb operates a peer-to-peer marketplace business model connecting property owners with travelers for short-term rentals and also facilitating unique local experiences. Airbnb does not own physical real estate, but instead charges a fee to both hosts and guests per booking. Airbnb stands in the shoes of the lessor because the rental relationship between owner and guest will not ever be consummated. But for its status and branding, Airbnb is all but hawking the property interests it sells. Airbnb has a market capitalization of $75 billion. Airbnb seeks to profit from properties it doesn't own. It is all but the lessor, but it tries to shirk its legal duties and responsibilities by saying we don't own the property, we just want to profit from renting it just like an owner. Worse yet, it exploits both sides of the transaction, the listing and the buying side. Excuse me. Airbnb is the owner in all respects except not having title to the property it seeks to profit from. Airbnb assumes the duty of building trust between users by incorporating a review and rating system, identity verification, and secure payment processing. Upon a host or owner accepting a guest reservation, the host or owner has a contract with the guest. This contract includes the host terms of the specific reservation details, the cancellation policy, and any other rules or policies listed in the property's description. No parties, no pets. The guest agrees to read and understand and abide by the terms of this contract. The host may also insist that the guest execute a separate rental agreement or contract. Hosts are responsible for the property and share liability for the rental. In this case, that host was Texas Premium. Airbnb's host guarantee provides indemnity and protection for claims against the host for injuries to guests and their visitors. Airbnb failed to implement adequate safety measures that could have prevented plaintiff's injuries, such as deficient screening procedures and ensuring safety policies are followed. I don't know how y'all gonna come out with Airbnb. I think they may get themselves removed from this because technically they don't know what the fuck is going on. But the host, on the other hand, might have a little trouble wiggling out. We'll see. Hosts must provide safe and secure environments for guests, which includes providing adequate security and screening. Texas Premium breached its duty to provide that security and screening. Under Airbnb's terms of service, hosts, in this case Texas Premium, are prohibited from allowing experiences involving pornography, drug use, adult-themed activities in private homes, and recording such activity. Texas Premium did nothing to ensure Milagro defendants and their agents abided by the terms of service. Agency. At all times, material defendants acted individually and or through agents, representatives, and or co-conspirators. Defendants are liable for the acts of their agents and joint actors under the doctrine of respondeat superior agency and joint enterprise. Civil conspiracy. Defendants, along with John Doe 1 and John Doe 2 and or other unnamed parties, acted in concert and with a meeting of the minds to commit unlawful acts, including invasion of privacy, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Each defendant is jointly and severally liable for all acts committed in furtherance of the conspiracy. Will this go down as a conspiracy case? I don't know. I can't say it won't, but I don't know. Causes of action against defendants. Defendants, through their actions or inaction, caused and contributed to plaintiff's damage by failing to have adequate procedures for the protection and safety of guests, failing to discover and correct dangerous conditions, failing to properly maintain their premises, encouraging, facilitation, or negligently permitting the excessive consumption of alcohol and or illicit substances without oversight or safety protocols, provoking or instigating emotional distress between attendees for the purpose of manipulation and control. I think some of this is legit. Some of it got a lot of ragu on it. I'm not gonna lie. As far as the acts of being SA'd, I do not think that's okay at all. That shit is disgusting. If that happened, I hope that they win. I'm just taking a quick little break here. But as far as consuming alcohol, nowhere in here did you say that people shoved alcohol down your throat. You willingly drunk the alcohol. Nowhere in here does it say that the liquor was spiked or drugged. So you were willingly drinking beyond your limit. Now, that doesn't mean that it's okay for somebody to take advantage of you. I hope people can, hear everything I'm saying clearly. and decipher what I'm saying clearly, I don't think that they can say that they made you drink if they just offered it to you. But if they took advantage of your condition, then that's where things go left. Entering a private and locked space without consent and unlawfully invading plaintiff's privacy. Capturing video and or audio recordings of plaintiff while unconscious, unclothed, and vulnerable without consent of legal justification. That part's gonna get Milagro fucked up. Especially if you knew that this was going on, you may be hit with conspiracy. You know what I mean? There's an admission online. I got to get through this and I could play the audio of her saying she picked the lock. So she knew what she was walking into and she allegedly recorded it. That shit's going to get you fucked up as well in the court of law. Publishing, broadcasting, or otherwise disseminating explicit materials without consent in violation of plaintiff's rights to privacy, dignity, and bodily autonomy. Monetizing and publicly promoting unlawful recordings on various platforms, including YouTube, Discord, Twitch, and Stationhead for personal, financial, and reputational gain. Failing to properly supervise and or train its personnel and or those personnel employed or hired by others for whom they are responsible. Failing to identify or disclose the identities of individuals potentially involved in the SA of plaintiff despite having access to RSVP and attendee data. And mocking, ridiculing, and defaming plaintiffs via public broadcast, including by making explicit admissions of unlawful conduct during live audio recording. So count one is premises liability. Plaintiffs incorporate 1 to 79 as if fully set out herein. Texas Premium owns the venue. Airbnb controlled the venue. It managed the venue. Again, I'm not sure if Airbnb is going to get any windfall from this. Its control is evidenced by its contract, but of course, Airbnb is the big financial, God, what is going on? Again, Airbnb is the ones with the bag, so of course they gonna try it. But I think Milagro and the John Does are the ones that's really gonna come out fucked up. Texas Premium might catch some of this too if they don't have their legal as strong. But it's really gonna be Milagro and them John Does for real, for real. But of course they not the ones with the money that could pay off a large settlement or judgment. Anyway, Texas Premium, because of its ownership in Airbnb, because of its control, had a duty to provide security and take other measures against criminal activity or tortious conduct. Texas Premium and Airbnb breached that duty by failing to take any measures to guard against criminal activity or tortious conduct, failing to enforce policies, failing to require security for parties, failing to conduct background checks and screening. I don't think that's going to stick. Texas Premium and Airbnb further breached their duties of care by failing to install and maintain emergency service contact devices, a panic button, or accessible landline communicate that would have enabled guests to contact emergency services. The injuries to plaintiffs were certainly foreseeable consequences from Texas Premium's and Airbnb's failures. There's no way they could have predicted that. Let's be honest here. These failures directly contributed to plaintiffs' injuries. Count 2, invasion of privacy by misappropriation. Plaintiffs incorporate 1 to 89 as if fully set out herein. Milagro's defendants, Jeffries and John Does, 1 and 2, misappropriated plaintiffs' likeness by recording plaintiffs, by recording them at Camp Mob and disseminating those recordings on various online platforms. They did so for the value associated with it. Plaintiffs can be identified in the various recordings. These defendants repeated multiple benefits such as increased followers, promotion of their brand, subscriptions and donations on Twitch, Stationhead, YouTube, and Discord. They also received audience payments and event participation and sponsorships and contracts. And I'm gonna be honest, if you're in her Discord and y'all seen her spreading these non-consensual SA videos, y'all should have reported that shit to some local authorities too. At least somebody, at least one of y'all. Count 3, invasion of privacy by intrusion upon seclusion or into one's private affairs. Plaintiffs incorporate 1 to 94 as if fully set out herein. Milagro defendants Jeffries and John Doe's 1 and 2 violated plaintiff's rights to be left alone. These defendants intentionally intruded upon plaintiff's bedroom, that is, Thomas' solitude and seclusion, while in an impaired state. These intrusions were unreasonable and violate basic standards for human conduct. These defendants also intruded into plaintiff's relationship in marriage and private affairs by recording them and publicly humiliating them. These intrusions would be highly offensive to any reasonable person. Plaintiffs suffered severe injuries such as severe emotional trauma, embarrassment, diminution in reputation, marriage, and relationship damage. Was there any physical damage as well? I mean, I don't want to really get into all that, but I would think so. Invasion of privacy by public disclosure of embarrassing private facts. Plaintiffs incorporate 1 to 100 as if fully set out herein. Milagro defendants Jeffries and John Doe's 1 and 2 published matters concerning plaintiff's personal life. After Camp Mob and without plaintiff's consent or authorization, these defendants posted non-consensual explicit footage of plaintiff Thomas and John Doe's 1 and 2 on various social media platforms. Very disgusting activity, Milagro. These same defendants posted again without authorization the events involving Toll Free and the guest wearing a wig. Much of Milagro defendants' exploitation and invasion of plaintiffs' privacy, including key admissions about their conduct, was self-reported on the Stationhead platform, including broadcast entitled All Things Go on November 6, 2023, which is around the time it happened, and on May 17, 2025 this year. These publications are highly offensive to a reasonable person of ordinary sensibilities. The matters publicized were not of legitimate public concern. Count 5, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Milagro defendants Jeffries and John Doe 1 and 2 intentionally or recklessly sought to inflict severe emotional harm and damage to plaintiffs. This intentional conduct is described supra. Their conduct was so extreme and outrageous that it goes beyond all possible bounds of decency and should be regarded as atrocious and utterly intolerable in a civilized community. I agree. These actions caused plaintiffs extreme emotional distress. Count 6, negligence and gross negligence. Defendants had a duty to exercise reasonable care. Defendants breached that duty as described supra. Plaintiffs suffered dehumanizing and severe injuries as a proximate cause of defendants' multiple failures to exercise reasonable care. Count 7, negligence per se and dram shop liability. Defendants provided, encouraged, permitted, or didn't prevent the excessive consumption of alcohol by plaintiff Thomas, who was so obviously intoxicated that he presented a clear danger to himself and others. Plaintiff's intoxication is the proximate cause of the damages plaintiffs suffered, which are described throughout their petition. Count 8, battery. Defendants by unlawful touching and permitting unlawful touching by others upon plaintiff Thomas while he was unconscious and without consent committed a harmful and offensive act constituting civil battery under Texas law. And of course, they're looking for the identities of John Doe's 1 and 2 so that their names can be explicitly added to the lawsuit. At this time, as it was filed, they don't have those two names. Okay, count 9, trespass. Milagro defendants intentionally picked the lock of plaintiff Thomas' bedroom and made entry into that room and private space. None had plaintiff's consent. This trespass caused Thomas severe damages. Count 10, breach of contract, third-party beneficiary. All right. I'm sorry about that. Airbnb has a host guarantee program providing indemnity and protection for claims against the host for injuries to guests and their visitors. That host guarantee program is part of the contract between Milagro and Airbnb. Plaintiffs are intended beneficiaries of that contract and host guarantee program. Okay, we'll see. Plaintiffs have sustained injuries arising from their participation in Camp Mob at the venue. Plaintiffs have not been compensated for the injuries arising from that participation. As such, that constitutes a breach of contract. Plaintiffs have suffered damages because of that breach. Count 11, loss of consortium. Plaintiff Antonio Tollfree is the former spouse of plaintiff Jordan Thomas. At the time of the wrongful acts described above, the plaintiffs were married. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's intentional, reckless, and negligent acts, including S.A., battery, invasion of privacy, and public humiliation of Thomas, Tollfree has suffered a loss of consortium under Texas law. A claim for loss of consortium arises when a third party's tortious conduct results in the loss or significant diminishment of love, companionship, comfort, affection, solace, moral support, sexual relations, and assistance from a spouse. Damn. The defendant's conduct directly contributed to the irreparable breakdown of the plaintiff's marriage and the resulting divorce. Defendant's SA humiliation and subsequent publication of non-consensual images of Thomas shattered the foundational elements of the marital relationship between plaintiffs. The trauma and degradation inflicted on Thomas irreparably damaged the couple's emotional, physical, and intimate connection. That makes a lot of sense, especially if Thomas became withdrawn, paranoid, probably went through a lot of mental trauma. In particular, Toll-Free was manipulated and deceived by the Milagro defendants and Jeffries, who intentionally separated him from his spouse, creating the very opportunity for the heinous acts that followed. He was instructed to leave the venue under false pretenses and, upon returning, discovered the devastating consequences of defendants' calculated and depraved actions. Only thing is, where was the check-in to no phone, right? Ain't no fucking way. You talking about you gotta leave and they partner can't come with them, huh? As a result of the assault and defendant's ongoing exploitation, Thomas suffered profound emotional distress and trauma, rendering him unable to maintain the mutual affection, companionship, and emotional and physical intimacy that once existed within the marriage. The emotional toll on Toll-Free has been equally profound. This watermark is crazy. He has suffered loss of comfort, affection, moral support, sexual relationships, and the stability of the marriage. He has also endured guilt, shame, and psychological harm arising from his inability to protect his spouse and from witnessing the aftermath of the assault and public dissemination of private, degrading footage. Ultimately, the irreparable harm caused by defendant's conduct contributed directly to the dissolution of plaintiff's marriage. Toll-Free seeks recovery for loss of consortium and prays for judgment against defendants for damages in an amount to be determined at trial, including mental anguish, loss of companionship and services, and all other relief to which he is justly entitled under the law. Okay, damages for plaintiff Jordan Thomas. Defendants inflicted serious, dehumanizing, and incurable injuries to Thomas, including physical pain and suffering past, physical pain and suffering future, mental pain and suffering past, mental pain and suffering future, loss of enjoyment of life and inconvenience, punitive and exemplary damages, attorney's fees, legal interest from the date of judicial demand, and all costs of court and expenses incurred in the prosecution of this litigation. Moreover, as a result of the conduct and incidents described herein, Thomas has sustained medical and counseling expenses in the past and in all reasonable probability will sustain medical and counseling expenses in the future. Thomas has experienced severe psychological pain and suffering in the past and in all reasonable probability will sustain severe psychological pain and suffering in the future as a result of his psychological injuries. Thomas has sustained loss of earning capacity in the past and in all reasonable probability will sustain loss of earning capacity in the future. Now, for Toll-Free, defendant inflicted serious, dehumanizing, and incurable injuries to Toll-Free, including physical pain and suffering past, physical pain and suffering future, mental pain and suffering past, mental pain and suffering future, loss of enjoyment of life and inconvenience, punitive and exemplary damages, attorney's fees, legal interest from the date of judicial demand, and all costs of court and expenses incurred in the prosecution of this litigation. Moreover, as a result of the conduct and incidents described herein, Toll-Free has sustained medical and counseling expenses in the past and in the future. We're going to just, come on, y'all repeated the same stuff. Request for disclosure and preservation. All right, we get it. They want to be paid out. And based on what I'm reading here, they should be paid out. So this is just about 20 seconds of audio, and you can hear Milagro sounds like she's on the phone, but this is the admission that they're talking about here, or at least one of them.
They go in that motherfucking room and start trying to fuck. The nigga's dick wasn't left, sound like. So you know I was standing at the door. And then remember, I had picked the lock and went in there, and all three of them was laid across the bed. And I recorded that. You remember that? They go in that motherfucking room had picked the lock and went in there, and all three of them was laid across the bed, and I recorded that. You remember that?
I played it twice just to make sure you could hear it nice. But she's recalling the incident. Now, I don't know if she was under the impression that this was a consensual encounter or what. But she said there was 3 people on the bed. She said somebody's situation went limp. That ain't got nothing to do with me. And she said that she picked the lock, she busted in, and she was recorded, which is an admission of non-consensual sex tape at bare minimum, because you didn't ask nobody if you could record them in their nude. Then they claiming that you played it in Discord and across your other platforms. So I think this might be another L for you and John Doe's 1 and 2. Now, it's been brought to my attention that this woman here has me blocked on social media, which is cool because I don't really care. But in searching for some of this information, came across her new page, and I was like, all right, let me see what's going on over here. Block. So, okay, just like the OVO docket. It's all good. You ain't got to cross nothing. Hey, all I'm doing is reporting on what's going on. I would just say block yourself from doing this type of shit, partaking in this type of activity, and J Nolan would never have no opinion about nothing going on in your life. How about you block the urge to do disgusting shit? But that's just how I see it, okay? Now, at this point, I've laid out what's going on in the lawsuit. Of course, this is going to play out in court. We're going to see how things turn out. But let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share the video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
Yeah, family over fame in this bitch, yeah. The glory of living righteous is setting in. My street knowledge and education's a perfect blend. Young mogul, independent, I've been setting trends. The first one from my family to be faithfully wed. Fuck niggas and the horses that they riding on. I see this shit from all angles like a polygon. I'll never politic and the drama be piling on. Father and great son acknowledged like I'm Bobby Bonds. Conversation with my lady about the paper route. 5-6 bank accounts every day I make it count. They down talking my commentary for hating now. Well, I can take it cause I'm bodying your favorite now, please. I could do this shit in my sleep. I been writing for these niggas, y'all read it and weep. I been fighting these niggas if you speak on the street. I'll turn your birthday party into New Year's Eve. Don't let me take it there. We ain't playing fair. This the ATL, Southside nigga moving furniture like Wayfair. Life on hold, no insurance for your health care. Lifeline gone, so you wanna be a millionaire? Well, let me tell you about this world I built. The women I dodged, the niggas that I read for filth. The sympathy cause consulting for the stacks I built. I had to